Hey everyone, welcome back to Superliminal. And on today's episode, I have the beautiful Christianne van Wijk, who is a filmmaker for Ickonic Media. I've been following Christian's work for about the last 3 or 4 years now via Ickonic, and I just love the work she's produced in terms of the soul-changing films and documentaries and series on there, like The Dream, The Great Unknown, Wisdom Keepers, the In Search of the Holy Grail, which was an incredible one, and fascinating series like Messengers that have had the most recent one being in fact, no, the last but one being with Sarita Sol, who has been on the show recently as well. And it was actually through Ickonic that I originally came across Sarita, and I've done some brilliant work with her. So it's a wonderful conversation. I love Christian's curiosity, and from the very early stage, she knew that things weren't the way that they seemed and was able to connect to the non-physical parts of her existence as well, even as a young child. And we talk a lot about reincarnation and the fact that the trap of the matrix exists way beyond this reality as well, amongst many other things. But yeah, it was a great conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't get paid for this, and I'm not an affiliate, but honestly, I highly, highly recommend you check out Ickonic Media. And if you like this kind of information and the stuff that I share here on Superliminal Podcast, then please do sign up for Ickonic. It's such great value, and the work that they produce is soul changing. They've got everyday, weekly news shows, and also bigger documentaries and series as well, like the ones that Christianne produces, films and directs. But anyway, that's it for now. Oh, as always, please do comment, like, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and please do share this episode and the channel with anyone you think could benefit from it, to get the wisdom of these great guests like Christianne in front of awakening people like you. But for now, thanks ever so much for tuning in, and enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you in a second. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Superliminal. I know you're going to say, Franco, you say this all the time, but honestly today I cannot believe, I just cannot convey how excited I am today to have the incredible Christianne van Wijk on Superliminal. Now, I've known of Christianne for about the last 3, 4 years, ever since I started subscribing to Ickonic Media. And Christianne, as I've said in the introduction, so I won't repeat what I said there, she's produced some really, really incredible documentaries and series that have literally changed my worldview and soul view as well. So when I started Superliminal about a year ago, the number of people I've shared Christian's work with who have gone, wow, has been amazing. And when I started Superliminal just over a year ago, I never would have imagined that I would have had her on the show today. But Christianne, you're here, and thanks ever so much for joining us on Superliminal. Welcome.
Thank you, Franco. And you're one of those super fans. Like, you've been so supportive over the years, coming to the live events, but also all your comments and your sharing, that you've really helped the cause in that way.
Oh,
And I remember you being in one of my videos for David's 70th birthday. You remember that?
yeah, I do.
Wishing
Yeah,
him a happy birthday. Yeah. So
yeah,
thank you
yeah.
for years of support.
Oh, it's such an honor, and you're very welcome, Christian. I mean, that particular video from his 70th, I think people actually just got sick of me saying, "Watch this, I'm on it. Look, watch it anyway, because it's about David Icke and it's amazing." But honestly, look at me at the
Yeah.
end.
No, that was
I
really awesome.
I did feel like a proper little fanboy, but it's not. It's not about just like being like a huge sort of super fan of Iconic. It's simply the fact, Christian, that what you're all doing is absolutely what this world needs right now. And so anything I can do to spread the message of the work you're all doing, I will, because humanity needs to wake the F up, as we
Yeah.
all know. But
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get onto that as the
Well, I guess
conversation.
I guess what it is with Iconic is that we're probably the only platform that understands the concept of nuance, and doesn't say this is our stance. So we're on the right wing spectrum or we're on the left wing spectrum. We're kind of in the 0 point field in a way. And our growth as a result is a lot slower than other channels who are much more on the barricade and saying, this is it, follow this, and leading you on a certain path, because we're more like trying to just go for truth rather than a side. Our growth is slower but more solid and more consistent.
Yeah, and I would argue with a much better quality of fan base as well. And what I mean by quality is people who are on the same frequency, who can cut through the noise, who don't see, like, Trump, the Democrats, Republicans, as David has talked about so often in this last couple of years, how the so-called alternative media has been massively infiltrated and hijacked. And you've seen how some of the even people like Alex Jones, who have now been co-opted, and what's his name,
Yeah.
Russell Brand, and various other people like that. They've all suddenly, everybody's becoming a blooming Christian all of a sudden. And I'm like,
Yes,
what
what's that all about?
the
What is
heck is
going
going?
on?
My partner Rachel and I were having this conversation a little while ago, and she said, "Is it just me, or is everyone suddenly becoming a Christian?" I went,
Oh,
"No, it's not just you." And clearly, there's an agenda at play there. But before we get onto
yeah.
all of that, and we're off already, and I
Yeah,
know
I
we're a
know,
bit.
right? Just go with the
I know
flow.
this is what I love about these conversations. But
Yeah.
I know we're a little bit tight for time today, Christian, because you guys are busy working on something in the background. But
Tell
perhaps we
what we're
could
working
start.
on. We're recording David's new book,
Oh,
Into
I
an
can talk
Audio.
about it. Okay, yeah. So it's the audiobook for it,
Yeah.
the recording for David's new book, which I can't wait to hear, because the three that are in the background there,
Yeah.
have probably, especially the latest one, have probably been the biggest life changes for me in terms of books that I've read in recent years. In fact, I was actually listening to the audio of it in the car yesterday, because every time I listen to it, I get a deeper level of awareness as your own level of awareness deepens. But before we dive into that, Christiane,
I'll
tell us
keep
about
interrupting you.
you. I know, and I'm the worst person for staying on track, because I just love being led
Yeah.
where the conversation goes. But tell us about you. What on earth made you choose this blooming crazy place, and why did you incarnate here? Where were you born? Tell us about your early life and what led you to the incredible work that you're doing today.
Okay, in a nutshell, then, it's nearly 52 years on planet Earth, so I'll try to be um, as succinct as I can be. I do know that, I was born in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and to parents that are amazing, but were absolutely not interested in anything spiritual or anything to do with the spirit. So it's not something that I was surrounded by or that was in my environment at all, especially among Dutch people. They're known to be very, yeah, I guess, down to earth and very much in the material world. But already from a very young age, I had the ability to observe myself and my actions. Now, that is something that I've recently found out is not natural for a lot of people. Apparently, 75% of humanity has no inner dialogue. I couldn't believe that when I heard it. Could not believe that. However, I already had it from a young age. So I would do something naughty, maybe, or I would be mean or something. Like I'm talking 3, 4 years old. And I already had a part of me that was observing me being mean or doing something naughty. And then thinking, ooh, in this life, I'm a little bit mean. So I was observing my personality going, oh, I got quite a funny one in this incarnation, that kind of thought pattern was already happening.
Wow.
Yeah, that is quite wow when you look back at it.
Yeah.
There was a great interest in spirit already. Again, I was not surrounded by it at all. So I asked my grandfather for a Bible for my birthday, and he gave me a children's Bible when I was 7 years old. And then I decided to go to church on my little bicycle, and I would go several Sundays in a row. I'd cycle to church and sit there. And I remember sitting in the church and listening to the priest and just thinking, I don't resonate with what you say at all. In fact, it's making me fall asleep. So I then realized this is not the place for me, but it was, I wanted to be around the spirit energy. And then a few years later, I remember inviting some classmates to play at home. You know, as a kid, let's go and play. And I had playing cards, and I remember naturally just laying out the playing cards to start giving them a reading. So there were certain things, pointers in life that were already leading you towards the idea of, hey, what am I? Who am I? And where am I? And that search is an ongoing one, as it is for all of us, I guess. Although I have to say that in 2010, and I always do find it funny when I mention it again, because literally in every single thing I've ever done, I always mention that date, 10-10-10. I was invited to an ayahuasca ceremony. I was in Glastonbury, and I was with a lady who had a clothes shop there. She made her own, or she had beautiful handmade clothes, and we started chatting. I was fitting on the clothes. And she mentioned that she was organizing an ayahuasca ceremony. She turned out to be in like an ayahuasca sort of shaman. And I was told that if ayahuasca wants you to experience it, it will call you in different ways. So this was to me a call, because it was only a few days away, I think, a week away, I think. So I still had time to go on a little sort of diet that you need to go on beforehand. And I had no idea that ayahuasca experience was going to make such a difference to my life. So even though I'd already been a seeker and already been looking a lot for the nature of reality and what it all means, the ayahuasca experience really flipping through. It was like a bomb exploding of gnosis and knowledge and information, and which subsequently took me about 5 years to integrate, because there was so much information that I was being shown that I needed over the years to look at little pieces and go, what did that really mean? What did that really mean? But what I really got,
and you were able to retain the memory of that information for all that
everything.
time. Wow.
Of that ayahuasca experience, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, it's weird,
that's
because my memory
incredible.
is not even that good, right? And I do forget a lot. But for some reason, that ayahuasca experience, I remember every single detail of it. And what I came out with is that I realized that we are in a loop of reincarnation that is not a natural loop of reincarnation. And I remember coming out of it thinking, this has to be my life's work, because the energy of it was so extremely upsetting to see how it worked, how this wheel and how this energy worked. I was like, no, I could never go back to a normal life after this. I could never go back to a 9-to-5 job and just pretend I didn't see what I saw. Now, people could then say, well, it was drug induced. How do you know it was real? But anyone who will have tried ayahuasca will know that ayahuasca is more real than anything you can possibly imagine, because what it literally does is it just removes the veil, and it removes all the illusions and delusions you have, and it just shows you what it really is and what's really behind something. And so I decided then to make it my life's work to just use my filmmaking skills to do this. And it was very difficult in those days, because a lot of people weren't interested in any of this subject. You know, we've obviously had a mass awakening happening over the past 5 years or so. But before then, whenever I tried to find any funding for my films, people were like, oh no, this is not commercially viable. You know, they weren't interested in anything to do with spirituality, awakening. And I remember wanting to make a film about what all these experience and what I'd seen. And I couldn't find anybody to fund me to do it. And so after having tried for a long, long time, I was just like, sod it. I'm just gonna make it, and let's see if the money will come. So I just started making it, and literally within days, in the Glastonbury area, I had met a lady, a beautiful lady, Anne McEwen. She was 89 years old at the time. And she came to me and she says, I have been meditating this morning, and I was shown that you are bringing in the golden light, and I'm going to fund your film, you know. It was the most amazing moment. Those were the exact
Wow.
words she used. What a beautiful woman. Bless, bless, bless.
Oh, that's
And
divine.
she sold some of her shares,
Yeah.
and it was all very, very low funding, of course, you know, because I was very used to working on a micro budget. And that led to Mind the Matrix, the documentary, which ended up on YouTube. I think it was 2014, and got over 1 million views. And it was basically laying out the whole picture of everywhere we've gone out of connection, or out of alignment, I guess the word is, with how we could be living in a harmony. So that was really the biggest production. I'd done smaller productions before, but that one was the one that really kicked things off. And even though, you know, I didn't earn any money, and I lived in a camper van for years just to be able to fund what I was doing, these films always open doors to other things, you know, and that's how it works. It's beautiful. It's beautiful when you follow your heart and you follow a drive, a spirit drive. The magic is absolutely stunning to watch, how
Yeah.
things just come your way.
And it's trust, Christian, as well, isn't it? Because you know you're doing something for a higher purpose, which is your higher purpose.
Yeah.
And as soon as you let go of that fear of how and what if, it's incredible how the universe looks down and speaks with you in alignment with your soul, and soul goes to the universe. Actually, the incarnation is ready, and the universe goes, great, there you go.
Yep. And then I also realized what's really important is to discriminate between the universe, the matrix universe, or the outside of it, and
Yes.
to recognize the difference between the two, you know, whether there's a manipulating element, guidance happening, which is still in the matrix, or when you're really connecting with, I guess it's your higher part outside of this matrix. And when you're aligned with that and walking the earth in that alignment, everything's possible.
Yeah, it really is. And I love how that then led you onto the work that you did with Ickonic, because you were talking there about the false matrix, and it's something that I've only really become aware of myself in this last sort of year and a half or so. I came across George Kavasilis, who has done a lot of work on this, that dovetailed beautifully with the work that you were doing in the build up to launching that lovely 4-part docu-series that you did, The Great Unknown, on reincarnation. And again, my partner and I were watching that right here in this house, and we were both like, what, what? And I actually got Lauder Leon onto the show, who I know you used.
You
Yeah, I know you
did.
used. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
great.
which was incredible, and that was a direct result of her appearing on the documentary. So you know, thanks for that. But what what since you created Mind the Matrix, and then evolved that, that's then evolved into The Great Unknown, which of course was inspired by a very sad personal loss. What what have you seen in terms of how your awareness has shifted in terms of what's really going on, and just the level of control with the Matrix? Because it's literally astounded me when I watched your Great Unknown, and then the work that I've done in the background with George Kabasilis myself, because you're both saying pretty much the same thing in slightly different ways, and other people are saying it as well. But tell us what your perspective is on the Matrix and just how far it goes.
Well, first of all, I always want to sort of disclaim and make a kind of disclaimer that whatever my research is, it is my research. And I'm totally open to the fact that I could be completely wrong. And that when we die, it's all going to be hunky-dory. Completely open. However, it doesn't matter whether what I say is right or wrong. There is nothing wrong with researching the phenomenon of death and preparing for death. There's nothing wrong with it. Most other cultures do it. The Tibetans spend their whole life preparing for death because they understand that life is one of the bardos, and there's other bardos as well. There's the bardo of dying, then there's the bardo of the afterlife, and then there's the bardo of going back into a life. So they are always preparing for the next stage, and that's never a bad thing to do, as long as it's done completely with an open mind and heart, and we are willing to adapt our viewpoints when they no longer resonate as truth. But from what I've researched personally so far, is that why would a matrix like this suddenly completely end the moment we die? Like, to me, that doesn't make sense at all. The deception on this planet is, as far as I'm concerned, super unholy and doesn't serve anybody, And when the New Ages come, yeah, but it's a lesson, or we're here to learn, we're here to evolve. From my research, we're not here to evolve. We already are. We already are pure consciousness, pure expressions of creation. And we are not only an expression of it, we are it, just having a temporary experience. So that means we have access to all knowledge and information at any time, and we can go into form and out of form at will. This planet Earth is only one little speck. There are countless forms of creation, countless forms of realms to live in. And to then say, oh, go to this little speck because you need it to learn and to evolve, and then put humans in such a deceptive situation where there is so much unnecessary suffering, in such a, I guess unholy is the word. It is such an offense to the spirit to see what happens here with humans. It's just not right. So I truly believe that when we pass, there is a continuation of these matrix levels. And in order to navigate that, first of all, we look into the whole phenomenon of death here. We look into the nature of reality, because understanding the nature of reality will help us also when we leave this form and go into the next form. And my conclusion so far has been one that actually wasn't my initial conclusion. It was a conclusion of somebody who shared this with me, and that's coming out in the next Messenger series with a man called Rolf Nuits. And he was on the board of the Monroe Institute. I don't know if you've heard of Robert Monroe.
Yeah, yes. Very much so, yeah.
So this was all about out-of-body travel. And it's a big institute in America. And he's running courses in Belgium, in Europe, all about the heart-brain coherence and left and right brain coherence. But he said something, and it was so simple. And I thought, excellent, because the solution is simple. I asked him, so what would you do when you leave your body and you go out? He said, I don't do anything. I just go in.
Yeah.
In other words, the way I heard that is that as soon as you go like that, you're already getting engaged by the projection outside of you instead of you being it. And now I'm going to say something controversial.
Oh, yeah, we love that here.
Well, for religious people, because you know how Jesus would have said, I am the way. My interpretation of that is, I mean, if he did exist, but it doesn't matter because some of the things he said are phenomenal. So I am the way is basically saying we as humans, we are the way. So if we learn in this lifetime to activate from within, then that activation is what leads us out of here as well, because that's it. It's almost like you have to go out there somewhere. We need to get out of the matrix external. But what if it's so much more simple and it's literally out is in?
And I love that, Christian, because I look, you know, we were talking about synchronicities earlier. And it's funny that you say that because just in this last probably 2 months, it's been a huge, huge realization for me that actually Ascension, as such, in terms of how it's classically presented in the New Age, is a decoy as far as I'm concerned. Because as you say, it's not about going out there, because that out there will likely take you into the higher frequency levels of the levels of imposition that the Matrix has, which one thing that I'd really resonate with that George Kavasila shares is that there's been three levels. There's been the imposition level of the Cabal. That's very much almost at an end. And overlapping that is then the imposition level of technical intelligence, or artificial intelligence, as people call it. The evidence is all around us for that. And then after that, the false god imposition arrives, which is then the second coming of the fake second coming of so-called the Christ. And we can see that unfolding right in front of us, because it leads us on to a really deep question about Trump and his connection to things like the Galactic Federation of Worlds. But I'll get onto that a little bit later, because when you look at what the outcomes are for those three levels of imposition, it's all about abdicating your own ascension, which is actually going inwards, as you say, to some outside party. So with the Cabal, it was the control and subjugation. With the AI, TI imposition, it's about becoming transhumanist and literally melding yourself with technology that's then going to it fascinates me what effect that's going to have on one's soul or one's spirit, because if we are indeed a unique expression of all that is, has been, and can ever be, having a brief human experience, I know that's David's expression of it, but I love it and I borrow it all the time, then I've always pondered, well, if we do exist way beyond um, even these God structures, then why would our all that is allow for that to happen if it couldn't just pull us out of it or get us out of it? But anyway, that I digress on that point. But I think the most important one, the third one, is when um the God matrix third level of imposition arrives, and all of a sudden spaceships arrive, and then cloned fake aliens arrived, second coming of Jesus Christ, and they cart everybody away on these huge ships to be harvested ultimately. And what I've seen, and most importantly, what I've come to feel when I go deep on meditation and I feel into the realm and I feel into my own journey and what my mission here is in this lifetime, is actually people are welcome to do whatever they choose. And as you said earlier, you know, I could be completely wrong on this, but for me, it makes sense to stay here and go deeper in my relationship with the planet, with myself, and actually go inside, because that for me is the way out. Because I remember in 2018, somebody I was close to died. And that's the first time someone I've been really close to has actually passed away. And I remember having this enormous meltdown a little while afterwards because it felt so final. And I thought, that's really it. I will never, ever, ever see or hear from that person ever again. And there was a period where, excuse me, one afternoon I was completely inconsolable. And shortly after that, I discovered Michael Newton's Journey of Souls book. And I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. This explains why my life has been how it is. But of course, having then dived deeper into that, I realized that, and I think Michael was a genuine guy doing the research that was right at the time. He spent 10 years researching this in the, was it 50s and 60s, before he even said a word to the world at large about it. But every single one of the people, he was a hypnotherapist, and every single one of the people that he put under, he was interested in that space of the life between lives, the space that we're in between each incarnation. And unfailingly, everybody portrayed a different description of basically the same thing, which is what Ickonic talk about a lot. You've covered in The Great Unknown, where there's this production line almost of souls going in, then you go for your life review, and then, oh, but you know, you didn't do so well, so you're going to have to go back and do that. And again, I remember reading this at the time and thought, oh, I actually now feel a lot better knowing for certain that, okay, so death is just like going to another school. But I still was like, I'm not great with authority. And I think people like us in this kind of space generally aren't,
Mhm.
especially when it talks nonsense and can't back it up. And I was reading that thinking, but it's just hierarchy. It's like these souls have to stay here, but those souls can't go there, and those souls can't go there. And I know David, he mentioned that he'd read the book. I think it was for, was it might have been for The Dream. He'd read
Yeah,
that,
I
and
think
he
the
did.
reveal, yeah, where the little boy finds the will under the floorboards in the
Yeah,
kitchen.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was that, but in all Michael Newton's work, it was all, and he wrote another three books, I think, and then his institute wrote another two, three books, and it's all, you know, all wonderful people doing genuinely authentic from the heart work. But still, I realized, hang on, that's just another version of what's going on here. And
Yeah.
then and then having sort of broadened my awareness even more and seeing that actually this exists way beyond the physical. I
Yeah.
ended up feeling like a little bit hopeless, thinking I'm absolutely, how on earth do you even get out of this? Because you're just going to get zapped by love that's been weaponized against you.
Yeah. So the truth will set you free eventually, but first it will, you know, upset you. And that hopelessness is something we all have to face at some point because it will seem hopeless, and it is in a way it is, but it's not. So in order to recognize archonic energy, you'll always recognize it by hierarchy. And so what you just explained is exactly again it, you know, even when we're talking about learning lessons or evolving, it's almost like we go to the next level. Wow, I'm now a lama and I'm at this level. And you recognize the energy by hierarchy. That's the great deception, because there is no hierarchy in the all that is. You're just expressing into form and going out of form again. Breathing in, breathing out. What you just described are the three levels you just mentioned. They all have one thing in common, and all of them lead your attention outwards to something outside of you. Now, we can be getting upset and say, there are beings doing this to us, right? Archons are doing this to us. But if we're really, 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 really being honest, we are doing the same to other creatures.
Yeah.
And that includes eating food. Now, I'm getting to a point now where I'm starting to question everything, including eating food. So I've stumbled upon people that haven't eaten for years and are purely living off prana energy. And they're saying that once they live off this prana energy and they're no longer in this cycle of taking energy of something, putting it in, and then squandering it, and then taking more energy. So that whole concept is a very matrix type of concept. It's the idea of I am nothing unless I take something of another, of something else, and I take it, put it in, and then I'm animated, and then it runs out like a battery, and then I need to take some energy from somewhere else again. That's what the archons are doing from the astral level. We are doing that here because we have been programmed to believe that that is how we are. But what we're doing is we're putting ourselves in this cycle of reincarnation in a way, because we we consent to it on multiple levels. When I listen to these people that don't eat and live purely of prana energy, they are obviously, this prana energy is what's within. They're basically generating all the energy from within. And one of these guys, Max Kosmos, his name is, he's Russian. He hasn't eaten or drunk for 4 years. He basically says, as I am speaking to you right now, I am concurrently active in 6 other dimensions the same way I am active here. In other words, him not being in that cycle and him basically being connected to his own inner energy means it activates everything. He's fully activated. He's reaching proper self-realization, proper full potential, what is possible as a human in a body. He doesn't even need sleep anymore, because I've started to even question sleep. I've even started going, what if sleep? What if they're saying you need 8 hours of sleep a night? And what if when we're horizontal in our beds in the dream world, that they use that as a time to tweak the program and make sure you wake up being a good little follower of the program? This guy, I completely resonate with him, and I completely feel he's truthful when he's sitting there talking about what his experiences are since he stopped eating. Now, I'm not saying now in this interview, everyone, guys, this is it, all stop eating, of course, because all these things are a very gradual journey. It starts with a seed, then that it comes out of the soil, and you suddenly go, ooh, this could be a journey I could walk. But we can't expect to then go, okay, well, I'll stop eating, I'll stop sleeping, I'll stop this, stop that. All that's required is a moment of recognition, a moment of consciousness around, hey, maybe what we've been made to believe is a deception. Maybe we don't need 8 hours of sleep. Maybe we don't even need all this food, because it just keeps us in this cycle of taking, instead of generating. That's enough to set you on a journey, which will then gradually expand into whatever is needed for you to get out of this matrix. And I think you can get out of this matrix not necessarily when you die. It can already happen while you're here. And so the dying process is literally just leaving the vessel behind, and you're already in that state of mind. That's in an ideal scenario, it would work like that. Not to wait until we pass over. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather spend my life now fully focused on letting go of all these ties and all these anchors that are keeping me drawn here into this world of Maya and this world of illusion.
Yeah. And it's so spooky that you bring that up about Max, Christiane, because I think it was actually you that I saw share a video on your IG feed it was only about a month ago, and I watched the video of him talking through an interpreter about his experience, and I was fascinated by what he shared. But interestingly, earlier this week, I got really ill, and I couldn't eat. I didn't eat for 2 days, and what you were mentioning there about having this expanded level of awareness and acuity, I begun to experience it. And since then, this was like at the start of this week. And I found myself, and I was talking to my partner about it yesterday, and I found myself questioning this whole thing about wanting to eat, because there was a Polish guy that I knew about 3-4 years ago. Unfortunately, I've lost touch with him, but he's one of those people where you come across him and you could literally feel the power of his aura and his wisdom. But he was like working on a building site, and I'm like, what are you doing? And anyway, he told me some of the things that he'd done. He'd been a healer, but I think he was too scared of his own power. He'd been a healer back in Poland. And then I think because he was literally he was healing children, and then people started getting a bit superstitious. But one of the things that he'd done was that he'd been on a properly supervised prana experience. I think it was for 3 weeks. And he said the same. He said, like, the first 2-3 days were pretty rough. And he said, and then all of a sudden he just like had this enormous breakthrough. And he said he could literally see beyond sight and intuit everything. And I had a brief experience of that myself, just not eating early this week for 2 days. So it's
Amazing.
spooky that you brought that up. That you brought
Yeah,
that up because it's again, it's just made me. It's just another layer of question everything that we're being told, everything about how we think this universe works. I mean, this whole frequency is nothing but pure consumption of
yeah,
everything. I mean, even if we breathe, we're killing millions and millions of microbes. Um, but it does beg the question of you taking because I was vegan for a good few years up until about 3 years ago, and part of the reason that I did that was because I was thinking like there's like I'm basically taking in an energy field that's been highly terrorized and traumatized just before it's been killed, and I am now consuming the frequency imprint that's in that meat. And it often made me wonder because then I would hear people who were connected to some of the ET races out there, and a lot of them would say that they only eat vegetables. But then again, vegetables are sentient beings, so I'm like, well, where do you draw the line? But yeah, I just thought that was really fascinating. You mentioned that having had the same
yeah.
experience.
No, it is fascinating. It's just set me off on a whole new journey around it. And I'm going to interview one of those people in November who also hasn't eaten and drunk, a Dutch person. I can't wait to talk to them because I just feel there is something very potent to find out about. And it probably is also, it's a changing time. So
Yeah.
it's very much a collective process. And the more people are suddenly getting that insight, the more it will manifest in the field. And it might mean that this next stage could be going two ways. It could be that you go the direction of AI and not questioning and full enslavement. But there's the other option of literally stepping out of the matrix already here, which
Yeah.
includes following any protocol that you've done throughout the generations.
Yeah, and it's a really important point, Christian, isn't it? That everybody is led to believe that the only way you can ever redress so-called karma, which I've always thought was a bit of a nonsense, really, was by coming back to readdress it in another life. Well, actually, no, you can do it in this life. You can clear all of it in this life. So as you say, that when the time comes, it's like, yeah, there's a guy called RJ Spina that I used to follow a lot, an American guy, and he often used to say that karma is simply an attachment to anything here in the physical, not necessarily the redressing. So if I hurt someone in this life, then I have to come back and experience the same hurt in the next life. But and that really resonated with me was that the karma was any attachment to anything in this life. And so as a reflection of what you just shared, it just goes to show that
Okay.
actually, yes, we can basically let go of all our attachments to this frequency because I often say to my partner and some close friends, um, who are on the same frequency. It's like, I'm done. After this incarnation, I ain't coming back to this frequency. I am done. I'm not coming back to conflict. I'm not coming back to war. I mean, I used to think the Star Trek future was it, where we all went up onto spaceships. But again, it's just more spaceships and aliens and more conflict and more war. And it's still within the Matrix, ultimately.
And what you're saying about karma, the way I understand karma is that it's an opportunity for you to understand the consequences of your actions. And when you have that understanding, like for instance, I treat someone not very nice, and I have a moment where I suddenly feel what they felt, and I just acknowledge that in my being, then that means I've transmuted that karma. In other words, I'm no longer attached to it. I've understood it, and I will act differently at another time. So it's something to help yourself, to free yourself, indeed, from what you say, the attachments that you have here.
Yeah.
And the Tibetans very much speak about, the importance of detachment, in the sense that, if you're still you have a lot of lust and you pass away, then that lust feeling can still come with you. So it's all about the preparation of leaving this earth, is all about gently letting go of these things, and not by pushing it away, but by giving it attention, and by giving it your full presence in understanding is what is this link I still have.
Yeah.
And allowing yourself to really look into it, and not just here in a cerebral manner, but with your being. And then it clears. So you're basically just consolidating all the parts of not just this life, but also other lives and ancestral energy that's in your body cell memory. You consolidate all those things for yourself. And therefore, I'm personally very careful with creating new liaisons in my life or new attachments. I feel like, in a way, I'm even, I haven't had children. And even though there have been parts in my life that I did want that, I do feel that in a way it will make it easier for me to like consolidate things. Because can you imagine like the love you have for your child? What an incredible attachment that is. I wouldn't have been able to cope with that. Like, there's no way I would not be able to cope with that. So I am, we were joking before we started recording about me being quite introverted and like shying away from being in connection with people. There is a reason for that. And it's not just introversion. It's also, I'm just very careful now with what I engage myself in this life, to not create more chaos, more emotional turmoil in my life. I've already been through that a lot of my life, where it's been extremely emotional. And I always felt like it's almost like I'm being used as a vessel for my emotions, and I'm not allowing that to happen anymore. And so there's a place where you can be, where there is a connection, a beautiful connection to Gaia, but also to your the all that is, your consciousness, which doesn't involve extreme emotional energies. That it's almost like a more nuanced field, a more balanced field, a calmer place. And I endeavor to be in that place, and I always try to watch the scales, and see if they're going too far one way or two way another. I'm constantly monitoring that, to stay in a way in the eye of the storm and not get caught up in it. Because when you see all the social media posts right now, and you see that how each side is being riled up, it's quite easy to get caught up in that energy and lose your center and get caught up in look at, they're attacking people in the street, we need to get on the street and start fighting back. And I find myself having these thoughts or having these feelings. And then it's important from the spirit element to keep monitoring yourself and going, hey, look, I'm being pulled into the matrix drama. So I'm going to observe and come back and try and stay in that balanced state again.
Yeah, because it's it's a really fine line, isn't it, between almost burying your head in the sand, but preserving your own aura and your own soul. And I love that you mentioned there the thing about children, Christian, because I'm almost 53. And for many years, up until probably only about 5, 6 years ago, I was actually reading Michael Newton's Journey of Souls book. I'd always wanted children when I was younger. And for various reasons, it never happened. A couple of near misses and so on and so on. And then I realized, oh, actually, and then as I deepened into my spiritual practice, my self-connection practice, basically, I realized, oh, it was never meant to happen in this lifetime, because the point you made earlier about this is the lifetime where we consolidate everything, not just in what we've experienced here in this incarnation, but actually the consolidation of everything from all the former lifetimes. Because I did some incredible work with Sarita Sol.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't she great? I
I've
love
just
the
been on
message.
a retreat. I've just been on a retreat with
Have
Sarita.
you? Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't Solhenge the most amazing place?
Mm.
Um, and I came across Sarita through Ickonic, which was incredible. So I've been a couple of years ago I was out there on one of the retreats, And there were a couple of things in particular that for me have been so powerful that illustrates this point, which was the healing the mother wound and sins of the father, which, because I have a very fractious relationship with my mother, and my father lives in Australia and I'm in the UK, and I had a very strange dynamic with him, but I knew inherently that I had to heal it. So I went on this live, like a 1 day live but online training with Sarita, and I didn't realize that we were actually healing 7 generations worth of paternal and maternal line. There were two separate events, and I remember after the first one in particular, I literally couldn't move for 2 or 3 days afterwards. But it was a really lovely feeling because I'd realized that healing had gone back through so many generations,
Yeah.
and bringing it back to the point of this incarnation for many people like us who've chosen not to have children, who've chosen to consolidate everything in this lifetime. The point that you made there about being very, very, very careful about where our attention and our energy goes is hugely important, because I find myself getting very easily drawn into what's going on in Palestine. And I'm like, no, hang on a minute. All those souls who've been murdered there in that genocide, they've agreed to this before they've come, because bravely, because they are there to help the rest of the world wake up to something else. So it's not about viewing it dispassionately, it's about viewing it and observing it and feeling into the information for what it teaches us on our own personal journey. But as you said, not getting really drawn into that, I've got to take sides. And I think that's really a really important point for those of us that know that actually after this lifetime, um, we're off into that frequency of existence and incarnation where conflict just doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, I know we're pretty much out of time, Christiane. I feel like we've just warmed up. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. This is
We'll do
such
it
a
again, and then we'll
fascinating.
do it again soon.
Oh, please, I would love that. But before you go, a couple of things. Firstly, what's next in terms of your research? What direction is it taking you in?
Well, actually, it's the prana energy thing is really the next thing. So the next messages I'm doing is with somebody who is obviously not eating and drinking. Again, not saying people to do that, but it's worth
Yeah.
looking into what's coming out of that. And I'm also going to make a film about the importance of sunlight with a doctor in New Zealand. So we'll be filming that in January. It's going to be called Sunspiracy, the Age of Endarkenment.
Oh, I love it. Sunspiracy. I love that. What a great title. Looking forward to that one, because all your documentaries, and I sound like such a fanboy, but it's true. Your documentaries have just been incredible.
So I love that you say that. That's just awesome. You never know.
Yeah,
You're just sitting in your editing suite doing your thing, and you always hope that
yeah,
that's the effect it has on people. I mean, I've been obviously very lucky to be able to work with David Icke so much.
yeah,
And I love working with him because we have the same work ethic and
yeah.
the same way of how we want to get things done. So it feels like an amazing blessing
Mm.
that's come on my path.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I say that with the utmost sincerity and authenticity, because they have literally been soul changing in terms of my own evolution. And again, as I said at the beginning, the people that I've shared it with unanimously have all gone, wow. And had the same experience. And people have subscribed to Ickonic because I've said, like, I've sent them a little clip and I was like, oh, we've signed up. It's like great value anyway. It's like,
You
yeah,
should
get
get an
yourselves.
affiliate link. You should
Yeah, I
get
should do. Yeah, yeah. Get
yeah,
yourselves on Iconic. I mean, I'm not bothered about that. I just want people to join the Iconic family, because
it's
the
true.
stuff what you guys are producing, the weekly shows. I love Richard's Classified, the stuff that Gareth
Yeah.
does with Jamie, and then the couple of round tables that you've done recently have been really fun to
Yeah.
listen to.
We're going to be doing one every month.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to, I'm going to be at Iconic Live up in Liverpool with my partner in,
Excellent.
is it December and middle of December, something
December
like
the
that?
4th or something. Yeah, I
Something
know.
like that.
Something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
So,
So, Christiane, I always finish these conversations with three quick fire questions.
yeah.
So the first one is, what are you most excited about right now?
Well, I have a little project that is only a seed now, but it's a long-term project, and that is that I would love eventually to buy a big piece of land somewhere and create a community with the aim of giving for children, basically, because I think a lot of children have, it's very hard right now for parents to navigate these times with young children and what's going to happen to them in terms of vaccines, digital passports, programming, education, and everything. And I would love on long term to create a safe haven for children where they can be completely at one with nature. And that's a long term thing. That's something that I'm very, very gradually in the background working on.
Oh, wow, that sounds so beautiful. I'm looking forward to seeing how that unfolds for you because, yeah, very much needed. So, imagine you've just jumped into a time machine. You feel yourself traveling through time and space, and then it comes to a standstill, the doors open. There in front of you is 12-year-old Christianne. What one piece of advice would you give that young girl?
Oh, that's quite an emotional question. I just feel quite emotional you asking that, because I have always been so lacking in confidence and insecure and not knowing who I was or what I was, that I've wasted so many years just worrying about what a loser I was. So
Oh.
I would like to say her, it's an illusion. That's not true. Allow yourself to be who you are and to love. And don't worry, because you'll always have food and a bed and you'll always be looked after. So just enjoy yourself. Allow yourself to enjoy yourself. Yeah.
And look where that girl ended up. So, yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Regardless. Yeah. Despite all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And finally, Christian, what, in your opinion, is the number one thing that's wrong in the world or with the world right now? And what one thing would you do to solve it?
Well, the one thing that is wrong is that people don't know what and who they are. And so they give all their energy and attention to something outside of themselves. And that outside of themselves is prone to deception. So we're in a cycle of continuous being pulled into deception upon deception upon deception. And so what we need to do is simplify our lives and stop listening to no, you can keep listening, but don't take anything anybody says as gospel. Continuously explore inside of you, what are you, who are you, and what the conclusion is you'll come to is that you are pure consciousness having a very, very short, brief, temporary human experience in this little speck called Earth.
Yeah, yeah. And that's such a beautiful place to end. And finally, Christian, where can people find you? Your work? Can people contact you? Do you want to share any of that with
Yeah,
us?
well, you've basically said it already. All my films are on Ickonic. That's where everything is amalgamated. So yeah, definitely, like you said, watch The Great Unknown, watch Divine Intervention, The Blueprint. Um, um, Gosh, there's a whole list
Wisdom
of them.
Keepers,
The
The
Wisdom
Dream,
Keepers, The
The
Dream.
Messengers series, all of
Yes.
it.
Yeah, I mean that you've got a lot to watch for a long
Yeah.
time, and I think people should just do that, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I don't get paid for this. I'm not an affiliate, but honestly, people get a blooming Iconic subscription. It's amazing and such good value. It really,
Thank you.
really is.
Thank you so much for
Honestly.
saying that. Honestly,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. And
so.
I never say anything like that without the utmost
I'm the same.
honesty and authenticity, but it
Yeah,
really is. I mean,
I'm the
you
same. I
know,
can't give a compliment if I don't really mean it. It just doesn't come
yeah,
out. It's just like
yeah,
it has to be authentic, and I do really feel that as well about Iconic, because we really
yeah,
don't have an agenda. So
yeah.
that that that's the key. We don't have an agenda. All we want is just for people to question that, so that it can assist them in their own personal awakening.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I love about it is just how you guys keep mixing it up as well. There's like new shows and new ways of doing things. It does keep it really, really fresh as each year evolves. But anyway, For everybody still watching, I was going to go off on another one there, but I've got to stop because I know you need to go. But for everybody watching, thank you as always for tuning in. As you can probably tell, I have absolutely loved this conversation. It's been
Oh, bye.
so fun. I mean, I've got a whole list of things I wanted to cover here. Like NPCs were one of them that we didn't even begin to talk about.
No,
Um,
no. Next
but
time, eh?
next time, yeah, I look forward to that, Christian. But yeah, thank you everyone, and especially to my regular viewers. I really love and appreciate your support and all the comments that you make. It's what makes it all worthwhile for me. And last but not least, Christiane, it's been such an honor to have you on. Thank you for all the amazing work that you do and continue to do. And thank you for being with us on Superliminal today.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me again. Thank you. So, and I look forward to our next installment.
Definitely. Yeah, me too. Okay, everyone. Thanks again. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.